My great-grandfather, Emerito Soriano Lorenzo, was born on February 9th, 1896, in the town of San Fernando, Pampanga, the Philippines. He was married to Olympia Cese Lorenzo, with whom he had 3 daughters and 2 sons. He owned a Shell gas station, a general merchandising store, and he was also a large shareholder of a local gold mine. Things were going pretty well for Lorenzo, until these guys came. The Japanese. The Japanese at this time had developed into a nation set on empire, by example of the West. At first, the Japanese sought simply to obtain spheres of influence and favorable trading arrangements with its neighbors, particularly in China. This can be seen with the Japanese invasion of Manchuria, which the Japanese had renamed to Manchukuo after capturing it in 1931. However, not contained within this sphere of influence were oil and rubber, both of which were held in great quantities by Western powers such as the United States and Britain. Thus, Japan decided to continue its territorial expansion and succeeded in taking French Indochina, the Dutch East Indies, British Singapore, and was in the process of wresting control of the strategic Philippine Islands from the United States. By this time, Japan had control of nearly the entirety of Southeast Asia. To combat this threat, the US relied primarily on the USAFFE, standing for the United States Army Forces of the Far East. This force consisted of a mix of American soldiers and some 200,000 Filipino recruits. Of these, Emerito was included as a private stationed in the Luzon province. Following the initial invasion on December 8, 1941, 4 months of fighting continued, during which the Americans and Filipinos were slowly pushed back into retreat. Fighting was bloody, and casualties on both sides rose to tens of thousands. Eventually, Emerito and between 60 to 80,000 sick, malnourished, and utterly exhausted Filipino and American troops were forced to surrender on the Bataan Peninsula to the Imperial Japanese forces. Though for them the fighting was over for now, there were great dangers awaiting them as POWs in the hands of the Japanese. Following the surrender at Bataan, occurred what is now known as the Bataan Death March, in which an approximated 15,000 died. The Japanese forced the prisoners to march an excruciating 65 miles from the peninsula to a prison at Camp O'Donnell. They were provided with little to no food or water, and disease spread quickly. If prisoners moved too slowly, they were bayoneted and killed. Luckily, as a Filipino native, Emerito was able to blend in with the civilian population and escape the Japanese when they passed through Emerito's hometown of San Fernando. He then grouped up with other escapees and joined the guerrilla forces. But of course, there are also those who are not so lucky. While this was happening, Emerito's family was forced to flee their home with the defeat of the US forces. And by this time, the Japanese and their horrible atrocities had already become well known to the Filipinos and the rest of Asia. In China were the rape of Nanjing, in which hundreds of thousands died, including an untold amount of women who were raped and subsequently murdered by Japanese soldiers. My own grandfather tells me of his experiences, witnessing friends being beheaded and infants bayoneted for sport. After nearly 3 years of Japanese occupation, General Douglas MacArthur returned to the Philippines and was able to successfully defeat the Imperial forces. Formal surrender occurred on September 2nd, 1945. As for Mamerta, though he found that much of his property had been confiscated or destroyed by the Japanese, he was able to return home to his family safely and lived until October 28, 1965. However, the injustices experienced by the Filipinos did not end with the expulsion of the Japanese, nor even the granting of Filipino independence in 1946. The Rescission Act of that same year, passed under President Truman, rescinded the guarantees of citizenship and veteran compensation benefits to the hundreds of thousands of Filipinos who fought in the war. To this very day, those brave men, of whom my great-grandfather is included, are still awaiting the justice they deserve for their service and valor during a time of great adversity.